Is nice and lined up. Welcome. This is Andrew Broussard Watercolors. Today, as usual, I have a quarter sheet of Stonehenge Aqua in front of me. This is my go-to paper. So I'm taking a medium hake, soaking it, and I'm going to give it a moment to relax and stretch. Then work through the ideas for an experiment for today. I'm thinking for today's experiment, I want to play around with earth tones, reds, things like that in the sky, and see what we can get to take place. So we'll probably play around with that, wet and wet. We'll let it dry and relax, and then we'll probably put more of a foreground in. So background, most likely soft, hazy, light, and then our midground, and then our foreground will be more, have a lot more contrast. Okay, so just putting some extra earth tones down on the palette. I got the Venetian red. We have our raw sienna. We're going to need some more. We have burnt sienna. We could, if we wanted to, play around with yellow ochre. Yellow ochre is going to be more opaque. I think we might leave that one out for right now. Any other colors that we can think of? Not so much. Just spritzing some other ones. You couldn't use light red oxide instead of the Venetian red. In fact, I have light red oxide on the palette. I've been using that recently, though I do prefer the Venetian red. I've just been using the light red oxides because that's most likely what y'all following along at home probably have. So this is raw sienna. We'll dash this in. Let's try to put interesting patterns. We'll go above and below just in case we wind up doing a watery type scene. Let's grab Venetian red. There's no rhyme or reason for the placement of everything right here. It's literally just trying to get something that looks interesting. We could grab some of that alizarin crimson. I do find that it softens quite a bit as it dries. So keep an eye on those spots where you put it, and that'll give us an idea. Seems like we could put the sun right in this spot, our light source. Let's put alizarin on the horizon. Let's grab more Venetian. Then let's get ultramarine into this mix. Kind of a purple for the sky. So from some darker parts of clouds and whatnot. Then we might jump over to Payne's Gray to accentuate higher up. Yep, let's grab Payne's Gray. Like I said, as what we're doing on top, kind of putting those colors down below, just in case we wind up doing a whole bunch of water. Payne's Gray. We might have to do a partial dry off. To get some thinner clouds in here. Right now with the extreme wet and wet, there's going to be the dispersion. Clouds up here are going to be larger. So I'm just blocking in a mass, dark mass. This is my horizon line. We'll build up trees back there. Let's see what else we can do. More Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray will soften quite a bit, so that's why I'm trying to build it up. You could probably take some cerulean blue as an experiment and put it in, but I think it might just be a little too, I don't know if it would flow well. Here's Venetian red again into this mix. I feel like we're getting a little bit of layering, and that's pretty interesting within the sky. Catch some of this. And we're just going fast and loose. In fact, I almost painted this on the back of a previous painting, just to try to get that extreme looseness where there's no regard for the paper itself, since it would be on the back of a previous painting. Just putting these guys in. Let's decide where we want to land mass. This is burnt sienna right here. Feed that in right here. This is a common foreground shape that I've been utilizing, just that triangle. And that prevents me from just getting a strip, strip, strip. It breaks up that monotony. And I can feed ultramarine into this. It'll kind of gray it up a little bit. Could just grab Payne's Gray as well and feed that in there. So I do want this to get strong. Could put another landmass right in here. This will help play around and dictate depth and size, depending on how big I make the trees in that spot. This is just letting loose. Let's take some burnt umber and just put it in just so you can see. Not too much variety with that. Here's the raw sienna in the sky. It's burnt sienna, sorry, just so you can see that. Now, what we will do is take a paper towel and now try to lift out some whites in the sky. I don't want to repeat the lifting pattern. I want to see if we can get that white spot for the light source, and then lift out for the edge of clouds. I'm going to grab more Payne's Gray. I'm going to mix that with Venetian red. That's not a mixture I usually use. I don't think I've ever used that mixture. And we'll put that in and try to really get some solid spots. gray. And as this is drying, these are kind of the finer clouds that I was talking about. It would have probably been better to bring these finer clouds lower and more distant in this region. So what I may have to do is accentuate that horizon now. And it is wet and wet, so it will soften to where I want it to be. And I should probably get it more on the blue side. So let's mix some ultramarine into this. And the reason I'm saying the blue side is to help it recede back. So sometimes pure ultramarine pops up for me, and I'm not really a visual fan of that. Carry it over here, and here's that mass that's closer. We're still wet and wet. I'm going to bring a shadow right here. So I'm bringing a shadow right here, even though I don't have a tree here yet, and that's to block the eye from going off the paper. I can also have taken an object from here and pass it across, like a tree or a branch or a rock bulging up, or even a whole tree itself coming up, and that would stop the eye right there. Look at paintings and look at the time lapses that I do of the master studies from the 1800s, and you'll start seeing very common elements in the corners. You'll see that this is a very common compositional shape. I have a little bit too much water right there. It's not picking up, so I'm trying to get more pigment in that spot. Oh, one thing I wanted to tell you. So before this, I took a shower, and I have a long beard, long hair, so I put stuff in my hair and my beard. And if you have a beard, always maintain proper beard health. But wash your hands thoroughly after that if you're going to paint. And this is for ladies too. If you put lotion or anything on your skin, make sure you wash your hands good before you start handling this paper. So if I was to start touching it and didn't have it washed well, those oils, and even just oils from your hands, can get on the paper and act as a resist and cause issues in different spots. So be cautious of that. Ooh, right in here might be an interesting area for a strip of cerulean blue. Try to build up this cloud as if it's getting closer to us. This is a fun experiment. Now, I kind of had like painter's block a few moments ago, and now I feel like things are starting to open up again for me. That cerulean blue would be so stark right there. Let me think on it and debate it. Okay, I'm going to take the paper towel just to lift up a little bit where this light from the sun would be reflected. This, personally, is starting to read as a cloud and not a background mass. So I can choose to lower my horizon line super low right here and lift that up, or I can play around with this edge, and that might help that spot read. And that darker mass in the foreground on this landmass might help. Then we'll have trees come up off of this. Let's go for it. Cerulean blue. Now I'm not sure if this would be an area where you would dry off and then cerulean blue, or go wet and wet cerulean blue. So that'd be a experiment for a future time. Reason being, if it was dry and I put this in, I don't know if I'd get those hard edges, and I don't want any hard edges back there. Then this blue, catch a little bit of blue down here, right? That's an interesting, fun application. You see how it really like acts different compared to the other colors that we have in place. It just doesn't seem completely part of the palette. I could put a little bit of this in the sky. Let's play around in some spots. Let a little bit of clouds, blue sky come through this this storm. Oh, now would be a great time for me to give my little pitch. Hey, if you look down below, I have a Patreon link. I would love for you to consider supporting me. Proceeds from that go to art supplies and help keep this channel running. There's two cheap tiers, a $2 and like a $5. The $5 grants you access to some exclusive content for patrons. If you would like to support me, I'd appreciate it. If you can't or don't want to, I completely understand. I would just love you guys watching, and I would love for you guys to like, subscribe, and ask any comments down below. How was that? That's like my kind of teacher voice thing, when you teach the same thing and it's 7th period. And you're like, okay. Some darks here. This is last minute wet and wet before we do a dry off. We could scrape a few rocks in the foreground if need be. In fact, we will do that with the scraping. Grab a credit card edge. This one is a little recessed. Okay. All right, so I think we can dry off now. We're still a little damp right here. I want to try to pull out a little bit of trunks. Okay, so now I'm going to take the number 4 rigger. I'm going to mix a dark, so this is Payne's Gray and ultramarine and burnt umber. I'm going to look along this area for a few tree shapes. Okay, I'm going to take that dark and put it down here for shadow and just to let them sit in place. I'm going to take the hake, grab that dark and start putting texture in. So this is the foliage. I'm going to do a large mass on the side. This is going to be underneath the mat, but I try to drive home the point with these videos that paint to edge and create that whole imaginary world. And this will help block the eye from going off the page. Put some texture along this line. I'm going to keep the foreground textured, but tonally very close to each other so that the eye doesn't sit and get consumed with the foreground. Let me do a dry off. This is ultramarine with that burnt umber, burnt sienna. Just trying to build up a concentration that's thicker so that I could create a mass of trees in this spot. I also have grown fond of taking ground foliage and blending it in to the shadow that would be cast. In fact, well, right in here, we'd have that. I do want, and I've been playing around with the black gouache lately as like a stark black element, so we might see that take place. This is me darkening the edges, the shadow of the rocks. Just continuing that theme of textured foreground where things are close in value. I think we might take an earth tone right there. You know, let me show you what I mean. Let's grab a little bit of that Venetian red. Put that in. Trees. Let's grab a little bit of raw sienna. And put that in. All right, I'm just mixing Payne's Gray into this, just trying to get my dark, build up that blocking mass. Dark, blocking mass shape. Keep the eye on the page. I am going to grab the rigger for some finer line work. I'm more talking to you than paying attention to what I'm doing here. That's gonna hopefully just get me to get, you know, random organic lines. I feel like this might need a higher portion up here. Let it go against that. Great brush along the edge. I could draw in rock structures, and there's going to be a branch that I was talking about earlier, how we can use something here that's kind of dead or falling over and blocking the eye from going off. And with more opacity, darker tonal values, we can get it to sit forward. I could just stipple in. I'm going to go along this edge, adding different elements like that. Maybe it's a stump or bramble. Let's take a step back. Look, everything seems darker on camera than it is in person. This back here, unfortunately, read as a cloud. So I'm going to take a light wash and draw a line back here to give the illusion of far distant landmass. We may have to increase that a little bit just to cover over that cerulean blue that was there. Okay. I want a tree structure right there. So let me move this palette out the way. I poured out some, I did get some black wash earlier. So just reconstituting it with a little bit of water. The reason I'm doing this is I felt that this line of trees was a little, I don't want to use the word, I don't want to say lame, but I felt like there wasn't a good variety in it. I felt it was just too there wasn't much life to it. So I'm putting this in to help it recede and let it be more of a background object, or a midground. So this is black gouache. It's been interesting on the palette. It definitely helps with the fast and loose, or if you want to achieve a good range of values. It definitely helps me. It makes it very easy for me to put elements like this on top of previous ones. You can see how this one, unfortunately, you actually can't really see how this one is drying compared to the other, most likely. So let me put that black gouache on there. So we're almost at the end. This is now just kind of tracing some lines, kind of filling things in. I'm not trying to tickle this painting to death. I'm trying to create a sense of reality with this tree. The fact that there's going to be a lot of stuff growing off of it and whatnot. The fact that it's going to have a shadow. I'm not trying to put in a perfect mask for the shadow at this point. I'm just going for value and texture. You can do little groupings, little masses of these. One thing you probably do, and I'm not going to do it, is mix ultramarine and light red oxide, or ultramarine and burnt sienna to a light wash and accent. Yeah, let's do it. It's not something I usually do, but now I have to make sure I wash it really good whenever I use that gouache. Look at ultramarine. Use a little bit of ultramarine right there alone. And that might be all you need. Just a little light kind of grade to give a little bit more shape to those guys. You can then mix it darker with burnt sienna for shadow. And there's nothing saying we can't go back in and use those mixes with where we put that black gouache. All right, let me dry this off. We'll take a look and see. Okay, so this painting is complete at this point. We did use the black gouache, which was interesting. I think it's becoming more and more essential for me, or maybe I'm on a black gouache kick. I'm gonna put bird up in here while I talk for a moment. So with this, a few things. It does appear lighter in person than it is on the video. The black gouache did lighten up some. That's because I reconstituted it. So if you use it directly from the tube, you would get a better black without mixing too much in it. We did a lot of earth tones in the sky, which made things interesting. At first I was hesitant to put that cerulean blue in there, but that cerulean blue was a really interesting experiment. This background, we didn't want to do it in land masses first, but it just kept reading as a cloud. So we did that. This blue works great, I think. It's a cerulean as well, but it just looks so good. Here it's a little more concentrated, but that looks very realistic. And I'm not sure if it shows up well, but that soft raw sienna, this would be your Venetian red, smoothing around it. That was really cool. That came out great. Well, very happy with that one. I hope you enjoyed. I can put a mat over it just for you guys to see while I sign it. Of course, please like, subscribe, follow. Feel free to follow along and do a paint along. I would love to see y'all's results. And like I said, if you ever want to contribute to this channel, there is the Patreon link down below. And I hope y'all stay safe out there and have a great day. Let's see the mat. Ooh, very happy. Okay, have a good one. Bye.